This being Wash U, I thought it would be very good to begin this homily with a quiz. It's getting to the end of the semester, right? So, getting ready for quizzes is not a bad thing right now. How many times as we celebrate this feast of Christ the King, how many times was the word king used in today's readings? How many people think 10? 8? 5? 4? 3? 2? 1? One time. One time. In fact, shepherd was used a lot more than the word king. Judge was used more than the word king. And maybe that says something about what this feast is about today. When Christ is referred to as king, it really turns that whole notion around. When Christ is seen as our leader, he ultimately shows himself as servant. So often in the Gospels, Jesus says, I have come not to be served, but to serve. I have come to give my life for the good of others. I have come that they might have life and that they might have life in abundance. If we call Jesus King, it is only to show that what true leadership is all about is service to others. All sorts of books have been written recently about so-called servant leadership, not only from Christians, but from an awful lot of secular writers. That notion is over 2,000 years old. But today, as we listen to the Gospel of Matthew, there's another twist to this. I say that the word judge has been used. But in a lot of ways, if we hear today's gospel, it's not that awful notion of judge that some of us Catholics that were born well before Vatican II might still have. It's an invitation. The judgment of Christ, Christ as King and Shepherd, is an invitation to us to be like him. That if we want to be leaders, we too need to be servants. If we really want to be the followers of Christ, our King and Shepherd, we are invited to do the work that he did. Interestingly, not great and glorious things does Christ talk about at the end. He doesn't talk about martyrdom. He doesn't talk about great syntheses of theology and philosophy. He talks about giving food to those in need, to clothes to those who need them, to shelter the homeless, to visit the sick. Things in a lot of ways that are very ordinary. And he says that in seeing those people in need, that in serving those people in need, we see the face of Christ. But as we think of Christ the King, it is not this glorious, fantastic, bright face of Christ that we see. It is the disfigured face of Christ. It is the disfigured face of Christ in the homeless person whose smell might send people away. It is a disfigured face of Christ in need that we might pass by as we come to a stop sign along one of the interstates and see the person with the cardboard sign saying, "Need help." It is the disfigured face of Christ we see by that one person who just drives us up the wall and we see coming down the street and we turn and go the other way. The face of Christ who comes to us, the face of Christ that asks us to be servant, is Christ disfigured, hanging on a cross. Christ truly in need. And we, as we hear today's gospel, as we are confronted by today's gospel, are asked to respond. When did we see you naked? When did we see you homeless? When did we see you in need of food or drink? As long as you've done it to the least of my sisters and brothers, Lord says, you do it to me. It is not great and glorious things that Christ is asking us. It is simply to be brother and sister to those in need. It is simply to go about our lives being servants to one another, especially to those in need. What Christ is asking us today is to build the reign of God, to build the kingdom brick by brick with the ordinary things we do in our lives, things that help us become more sister and brother to those with whom we live, especially those in need. And as we build the kingdom brick by brick in those ordinary things, it is that very same kingdom to which Christ will welcome us to at the end of time.